I'm Shirish Nene, and on behalf of DCSAFF 2022 Summerfest, I'd like to welcome our audience and our panelists to this session where we meet some of our very talented and diverse set of filmmakers, actors, and hear their story. I would also be remiss if I didn't recognize the contribution of three groups. One, our sponsors. You make this festival more and more successful every year with your continued support. Our untiring organizers who just make everything so seamless and magic happens as all this festival comes together. Last but not least, and perhaps the most important of all, is our audience. The folks who give the support and enjoy this interaction with filmmakers. We hope over this next hour, you get some of this interaction, albeit in a virtual session. So without further ado, I'm going to go across the top of my screen and I'm going to ask each one of our filmmakers, actors to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their film. Shirish, let's start off with you and who am I?
Hello, sir. I'm Shirish Kemaria from team Who Am I? My producer, Dr. Alok Prakash, is also with me. Yes.
Welcome. So tell us a little bit about Who Am I? It's based on the novel Koahem.
Yes, sir. It's basically a spiritual journey. So I myself dealing with existential crisis in COVID period. So that time I got to know this novel, Koahem, and I was worried about what we are doing here, and what is life. So I got this novel, and I am from Central India, Madhya Pradesh. So there is a river called Narmada.
Yes.
And this story revolves around Narmada River. So it's basically shows the Narmada Parikrama, and the spirituality of Narmada Parikrama, religious views of Narmada Parikrama, and also it talks about self-exploration. By the time we are doing that, the novel is set in 1980s, so we have to adapt in current time.
You know, it's wonderful. The selection of Narmada, there are so many journeys of self-identification associated with that, right from the times of Mahabharata, where Ashwatthama is still believed to walk around and be found near the Narmada, trying to find peace in his identity. So it's a remarkable story, and I'm sure our audience over July 16th will enjoy this movie tremendously. Alok, tell us your perspective. How did you come about being the producer for this movie, and what are your thoughts on the selection of this movie?
Yeah, I am Alok Prakash. Actually, this series was connected to me on the social media, and he used to talk me on certain subject, but somehow those didn't get clicked. But when he sent the pitch of this story, so first I said to him, okay, just wait for half an hour. First, let me go through with the entire story. And since I have already read this novel, so I got connected with the story. This was a fantastic story, and self-exploration. Somewhere at some point of time, we all try to understand for what purpose we are doing, for what we are here. So this is the self-exploration story of a student who is studying the philosophy, and the best part of this film is he was shot in COVID time.
Mhm.
The entire world was suffering from COVID, and we were the first one in India to shoot this film during the COVID time. So the journey is from Amarkantak to Hosangabad. These are the city from where the Narmada starts, and when the Narmada spread over the big river. Okay, so I am also belongs to a spiritual city from Mathura. So somehow I got connected and I decided to make it. I believe this is story uh, audience will definitely enjoy because the beautifully made uh, music is good. Even the songs and everything, whatever feedback we got till now is very good.
Well, wonderful. And before, there's many facets that we'll explore about this movie. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that, Shirish, you're probably one of our youngest filmmakers that we have out there. You're only 21, and you're already engaged in this journey of yourself, of self-discovery. So congratulations. Good job there.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
one more thing about this film is the entire team was below 25 except me.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So
very inspiring.
first of all, believing on the new team that who is too young to do this kind of heavy subject. Somehow I got the connection from the God. Let's make this and believe these boys and try to bring this story to the audience.
Tarun, conception. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you and about your movie.
Absolutely. Hi. So my name is Tarun Verma. I did the movie Conception. It is a marital drama about a couple who can't have a kid and they have to go through the journey of IVF, so in vitro fertilization. So we hit on a lot of different topics such as the rising rates of infertility in the world. So my background is that I was a fertility pharmacist for many, many years. So this film is a collection of all the stories that my patients have told me over the years. So I really wanted to be accurate to this population base. I had never understood these things until I became a fertility pharmacist to see what couples go through, and more specifically, what women go through when they go through IVF. I mean, they are essentially, in short story, I don't want to get into the science too much, but women have to essentially pump themselves full of hormones to get fertile, whether it's the man who's an issue, the woman is an issue, and essentially to kind of induce a pregnancy, right? And so this is very, very difficult on the woman. It's very difficult on the relationship as a whole. And so that's what I wanted to kind of explore, because it really touched me during my time to spend my time with these patients and really learning everything that goes on with them. I mean, there's some very heartbreaking stories that I have of patients who are selling their cars, their homes. I mean, IVF is not cheap. I don't know how much it costs in India, but here in America, it is extremely expensive. Our healthcare system is it's not friendly to anyone who wants to have a child here. And so that's a little bit about what the film is. And really it's an emotional draw. Again, we didn't have a massive Hollywood budget on this. So, it's something that we chose to go, okay, this is a scale of the film. How can we tell it like this? So just in a short format, that's kind of a little bit what the movie's about. And and that's Conception. And nice to meet all the rest of you filmmakers. Very looking forward to hearing about your films as well.
Tarun, you talked about the cost, both financial and emotional. And this is almost like a continuation what Shirish and Alok were talking about, the study for your identity, because what drives, I thought as I watched your movie, this whole thing for in vitro fertilization, because people are trying to, especially women, they identify with this motherhood. So that seems to be almost a driving force out there. And you've brought that out so well in your movie. I hope the audiences will enjoy it as much as I did. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Moving on to Siddhant with Aina, a Mirror. Tell us about your documentary.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Sorry, my signal might not be that great because I'm traveling at the moment.
Okay, no worries.
My film is about the journey of two women, Ritu and Farah, who were attacked with acid on their faces and their bodies, and the stories of their survival and their friendships and their everyday lives, and the peculiar circumstances that they have been thrown into now in their newfound identity as acid attack survivors. But the film is primarily focused upon understanding them beyond their facial scars. So, really getting to know about their personalities, about their traits, and about their interpersonal relationships. The film took about 5.5 years to complete.
So tell us what drove you to this topic, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Sylvan.
Well, the topic, I think almost every Indian man or a woman is accustomed to hearing or reading, or accustomed to being surrounded by all sorts of domestic, sexual, or physical violence that is against the female gender. It surrounds you all the time, and I think, unfortunately, and I think it was a matter of chance that by social media, I came across these articles about acid attack survivors, and most of the articles and videos and pictures I saw that they were extremely ecstatic and smiling and laughing, and the two things for me it created a bit of a contradiction, and I was curious to figure things out. So I went to the cafe and I met these girls, and there was an instant connection, and we became friends, and the journey began. Well, my background is I've studied cinematography, but primarily for fiction. And actually, Aina Mirror was my first ever documentary that I ever indulged in. Initially, I thought it would be a short film, but it didn't feel like that after I got deep into it.
So congratulations. Again, I just see this common thread of searching and establishing your identity. And these girls have done it so beautifully and well. And you brought out their courage as well as their trauma in bringing this out so well. Good job there.
Thank you. Yeah, they're incredibly powerful women, and it was a pleasure to spend time with them, work with them, and become their friends.
Wonderful. Now, moving on to Arindam. Tell us about yourself and Once Upon a Time in Calcutta.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Arindam Ghosh. I'm an actor in Once Upon a Time in Calcutta. I live in Washington, D.C. I am an artistic director of a local theater group, but I also collaborate with Indian filmmakers, often in the capacity as a producer and sometimes in the capacity of a screenplay writer, this time in the capacity as an actor. The film is directed by Aditya Bikram Sengupta, he's a very young and very upcoming Indian director. His first film was Asha Jawar Majhe. This is his third film, and all of his films has a very unique approach, unique style of presenting stories, and he has made quite a name for himself. So it was absolutely an honor and a privilege to be able to be part of this cast, which tells a story about the city that I grew up in and city where I came from, Calcutta. And my involvement in this project started way back in 2016, early 2017, when he was developing the story. And he had an initial draft of the script, and then he kind of changed over time as he focused and he refocused the story and his narrative style and what he wanted to say. Taking a step back, the motivation for this film, it's like I've heard from other filmmakers, dealing with identity, whereas Who Am I deals maybe with the identity of an individual. Once Upon a Time deals with the identity of a city.
Wonderful.
Calcutta has such a rich history, both culturally, economic wise, but it has also struggled in balancing its past heritage and moving forward with modern development. And as Aditya puts it, the motivation for embarking on this journey is when he saw, okay, so there is this thing that we all grew up with in Kolkata. It's called Dinosaur. It's a science city, which is essentially an exhibition hall where we had various kinds of cool science exhibits. And right outside the hall, there was this huge dinosaur statue. And this right around when Jurassic Park was just about coming out. So that dinosaur statue was a big draw for all of us. We used to go there, hang out there, and it was a very iconic type of an image that we associated with Calcutta. And then one fine day, and as Aditya was traveling, he said he saw that statue being torn apart because they had to make way for a flyover to go through that area. And that incident left a mark on him, and he asked the question, what kind of a development are we pursuing? Are we thinking through our past? Are we balancing our culture, our heritage, or are we too entrenched into backward thinking and just accepting blindly whatever being fed to us as in development? Now, all this is, of course, in the background. This is the big macro question that drives the project. But essentially, identity of a city cannot be just a few theories or stories. It's this people who live in these cities. It is people like them who delivers a city, their character, their history. And so at the end of the day, although it's an identity of the city, but it delves into the people who are actually in this city, who are struggling on a day-to-day basis, trying to balance out this developmental rush and also this past which keeps holding it back. And of course, the protagonist of the film, played absolutely brilliantly by Srilekha Mitra. Ella is like a washed out actress. She was at one point of time very popular, but then had to give it up because her child was born with Down syndrome. And so she gave up that career, but her child dies, and she's trying now to get back into the swing of things. And she has just one goal in mind. She just wants a space of her own. She's unhappy in the setting where she's at with her husband, where the relationship has gone cold. It's a big family. She craves for a place of her own, and the journey she undertakes, and at every aspect she's faced with this daunting challenge and setbacks, but she keeps soldiering on, and that is what the heart of the story drives. Also, as a kind of a metaphor for the city as a whole.
It is.
How much you put the city down, it will keep fighting back and try to forge ahead with a new identity.
What a great description there, and I can't wait to see the movie. Wonderful. Let's move on to Homecoming. That gives yet another discovery of the city and some of the people who grew up there. Somyajit, would you tell us about yourself and your movie?
Hi, I'm Shomujit. I've been part of the Calcutta. I'm rather a byproduct of the Calcutta youth arts movement, you might say, which was started way back in around 2009. From where the film Homecoming also originated. The idea behind Homecoming is to throw a light upon art collectives and how people who come together under one roof as an arts collective, they then start a movement of under the Calcutta Youth Theatre Movement. In this particular auditorium, we used to frolic in. It's called Gyan Manch. And then how post-graduation, like reality check seeps in, and you disintegrate into individual lives. And then the city gets left behind because most of the people leave the city. And Calcutta here it's more like the film is a love letter to Calcutta, and as Arindam pointed out, it's about the people who make the city. Like, it's definitely, if you know the people of Calcutta, then you can know the city. It's definitely got stuck in the past and one leg in the future, and in the present times is in nostalgia. It's seeped into nostalgia, and how the current young theater generation or the young arts collective, they are trying to find their way through. It's also a wake-up call to ourselves. I would say it's a personal film that way, because I was coming to about myself with this background first. I've been part of around more than 25 feature films primarily as an actor. But my real identity lies in starting Lok Arts Collective, which was as a student of St. Xavier's College, as a film student out there. We met different cross college, and since I was also part of school festivals, so they eventually became part of several Calcutta colleges, and then the college fest circle evolved, and here we met many like-minded individuals, which form the 27 characters inspiration in the film of Homecoming, where all these characters come together under one night. So that night, it is very important that one night brings them together. It's from the story of Homecoming lies in when this backstage manager is listening to this ode to Durga Puja, the largest arts festival in the world is Durga Puja, in fact, which has a home in Calcutta. And this guy, Godot, who's rightly named after Beckett's Godot, he discovers that he gets this letter and realizes his parents and uncle, his family is basically selling his ancestral property where this theater group used to rehearse together. They're selling it off, and it's going to be turned into Calcutta's first heritage hotel by the Ganges. And he instantly, and he's got back from his day job in SF, and he's listening to Mohalaya. The Mohalaya is the precursor or the harbinger of basically Durga Puja. It's a annual chant we usually hear 1 week before Durga Puja. It's Mohalaya starts. So while hearing Mohalaya, it's a custom that at 4 a.m. IST, people wake up and hear Mohalaya chants. And obviously it's evening in the US when he's listening to that, and he gets this letter, and he comes back to Calcutta instantly by booking a ticket and forms this WhatsApp group called Rasta Amra Reunion @Navami. Navami being technically the last day of Durga Puja, and Rasta being the rehearsal space, and Amra being the name of the theater group, and reunion being the reunion. So the film evolves into this one night reunion where dreams of the past or a failed youth theater movement comes alive to bring promises of a collective future again. So that's how like the personal got intermingled with the fiction, and I think the best of self-discovery lies in there. So that's my first film, Homecoming, as a writer, director, producer.
And Meghna, like you, your protagonist span is bicontinental. Came from the US, has moved to Mumbai. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm so excited listening to everyone's films. I really can't wait to watch all your films. Congratulations. Well, I grew up in Mumbai, and I got married and moved to the US in 2002. And I've had a long journey, with related to immigration issues, whereby I became a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker primarily, and I made earlier films on immigration. And this film is really, a story about a mother, Sushma, who is a psychologist, also an avid mountaineer, and her journey, together with her daughter Aarti, who is musically gifted and is also autistic, and their journey in Mumbai, where they've opened a cafe called Cafe Arpan, where they employ children with developmental disabilities and give them meaningful work. So I really chanced upon, this story because I'd been working on the immigration issue for a long time. And, I keep going back to India to visit family. And I was like, I want to make something short, because my heart is always in India. So I came across actually on Facebook, a friend had posted a video of Aarti, singing in this cafe. And it's something about her life just touched my heart. And I was like, I have to meet her and, possibly make a film on her. And then I met Sushma, her mom, who's also incredible. And it was just so organic, the process. I spent 2-3 days with them and the kids and the cafe, filming them. And, that's how this film came together. But really, the main intention I had was, that, the children with developmental disabilities, they have their unique dreams. And that's really the main message of the film. It's a mother's love and dedication to her daughter, and, her daughter's, identifying her daughter's strengths, and really giving her and providing her all the resources to make her dreams come true, and also to be independent, and also a message to other parents and strength to them through Sushma's example, that these kids are unique, each of them have something special, a gift that they have for the world. And how can we use I want to use this film to spread this message to more and more parents, because really these kids were, it was a treat for me to be around them. They were just so pure, full of love. There's lots to learn from them.
Oh, absolutely. You think about autistic children maybe withdrawn, but that's not the case with Aarti at all. She's walking down the street and she stops and she says, "Hey, hello, so-and-so, hello, auntie, hello, uncle." It's just so refreshing to see her love. And, you've brought that out with all the other kids as well. And again, what I see with all the films out here, we're all on a journey of self-discovery. And how do we find ourselves? Now, let me take that. You've touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to start on the next phase of our conversation. What is your journey of self-discovery? What drives you as an artist, as a filmmaker in general, and parts of that you can relate back to this film?
So no, for me, really, I never started off wanting to be a filmmaker, and I was actually studied marketing and I used to work in advertising, but it was my life events, that got me actually on a spiritual journey where I was again questioning, who am I? When I came to the US, I was not allowed to work on my visa, even though I came here legally. So for 5 years, I couldn't work, went through a severe depression. And during that time, I was really asking myself, what is the purpose of my life? And I came across this amazing Buddhist practice, chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo with an amazing community, which really helped me find out, what is my purpose and, what do I want to do. And so for me, filmmaking is an expression. It's not my identity. It's not who I am entirely. It's an expression. It's a means for me to fulfill my purpose, which is, to bring out my potential, to be happy and overcome struggles, and, help others do the same, through the stories I tell, through the people whose lives we get to see. That's really a great honor, to have this window into someone's personal life. And I think that's the beauty of documentary and even fiction, to be able to go into a world which you would never go into before, and that's an eternal journey, I think. So it's always continuing.
And as we talk about, the artist getting her or his sustenance from this connection that you establish with your audience or your subjects, tell us about what your experience has been, both through films or your subjects? What is the feedback, the connection you've been able to establish with your subjects and with your audience?
Yeah, so I think for me, the connection has been, again, because the purpose is so clear for me. So when I'm talking to somebody, I'm very much in the moment, and something in their life feels the purpose why I'm doing this, and they're able to open up. And so it's really, that connection. And, learning, for me, I've learned from Sushma, how incredibly she has made her own life and her daughter's life. So it's really perspective, how you look at your life, right? And so that has been the biggest gift, like learning from, different perspectives of, how things that we think may be a problem, but somebody else is looking at it as like, this is an opportunity. This is how we can live our life. So for me, the biggest gift is getting, gratitude to be able to see things from perspectives which are not my own.
And still with you, Meghna, the other aspect is going to be, is there something that you'd like to share with other filmmakers with your experience in making this thing? And as you came from a marketing background, brought into films. We've got we've got a background in pharmacy with Tarun, who came and translated that into filmmaking. I love hearing these stories. Tell us what you would share with other filmmakers from your experience.
I think filmmaking is a very difficult, everyone thinks it's a very glamorous thing, but it's very difficult, because a lot of times you're isolated, there are limited resources, you're trying to do multiple roles. But I think, again, going back to your purpose and, not giving up and, being in the community, I think that's what COVID has really given us, because now Zoom, we can be in communities and learn from, filmmakers all over the world. And so I think it's more about, when you think of artists and filmmakers, you think that, oh, this is a creative, special thing that some people do. It's like isolated. But I think the more we break out of that and we really realize that it's a collective, like, come together and we learn from each other. I think that, and I think to reduce the pressure, of course, there's, distribution pressure and production, all this pressure, but how can we be in the moment? When we are in that moment, either we're writing the script for fiction or we're producing or we're filming, and I think that's where we can really derive the joy. And, that translates, I think, on the camera as well.
So if I recap, it's almost like on this journey of self-discovery through filmmaking, it's the journey itself that's a reward. Every step along the way, savor it, cherish it, move forward. What a beautiful way of expressing that. Thank you, Meghna.
Thank you.
Now, Shomyajit, coming to you, what made you want to become a filmmaker? Well, you've done a host of different films. What drives you?
I think when I was as a child and went to watch a movie in a theater, my parents used to take me to watch Rituparna Ghosh's films. The last of the Mohican of the 90s prolific filmmakers in Calcutta. He passed away a decade back. So while watching his films, I suddenly realized that there's something in the art of storytelling and characters that makes this entire audiovisual medium an allied form of all art forms through storytelling and characters. Since I was coming from a theater background right from junior school, while doing theater, I started studying on my own about how mise-en-scene came from theater into cinema and the parallels and such like. So that was the first idea of, so I fell in love with cinema at a very young age, both cinema and theater, in fact. And then it was just a chance encounter with film school, you might say, that only made my academic knowledge of cinema very strong than like what I would see in contemporaries. It's like Indian classical music. You don't have to like pursue it to be a singer, but you have to like know it to attain that spiritual Zen mode. I think that is what cinema knowledge like trains you in. It's that, and from there, gradually, I wanted to be part of cinema just as a practitioner. Being a theater practitioner, we were used to doing, or started off with writing, acting, direction, light designing, and such like. Then gradually, I got my first break in college only when this Q's film Gandu was my first feature film as an actor. We did a mobile video competition where he judged it, and I was directing it and I acted in it too. So that's how that first independent film, first film as an actor happened as a feature. But then my second feature film was but completely opposite. It's Ashiki 2. It's a 100 crore Bollywood grosser, like a box office success. So these two were my first two films, and then I worked on. Then I was called in Bengali film industry to work in the mainstream cinema out here, where I did around 15 films. But parallelly, lead roles were being offered for Cat Sticks. There's this very special film you might have heard of, Cat Sticks. It won at Tallinn and at Slam Dance, and it did a lot of rounds with the festival. So I was one of the leads there. So and as well as host of the Golden Globes. So my judgment of cinema was not like limited to genres, or it was more of like an agnostic space of loving cinema, which was seeped in from my young age only into Bollywood, into Bangla cinema, and then Tollywood. But then I suddenly realized that I've not been creating for a long time, because I was part of being an actor, but being like a lover of like writing and direction as well, which I last did in film school. So I took a break from acting in 2017. Hired a space where I could write my film as a studio in peace in Calcutta. And then eventually was shooting my film with a producer I'd worked for before. But suddenly the budgets increased, and there was no practicality in a first-time filmmaker like me in production level. Like you don't look at budget as a filmmaker and then mount your film. You just make your film because you want to. So so then the industry comes in, and the industry imposes budgets on you. Industry imposes wants to impose star cast on you and such like. But then it's up to you to choose your way forward. So I backed out from my producer around 4 days before shoot. And I independently loaned out the money and produced it myself in February 2020. And then March, the pandemic happened, and my flashbacks were left me short, which we again returned a year back in January, a year later in January 2021 to shoot the flashbacks during the second wave itself. And then a year passed and we finished the film, and here we are.
Wow, that's quite, I as I was listening to you describe this and the other filmmakers we've had, it's like your film Homecoming. You start off in college or school with certain ideas, you pass, and then your paths diverge, you go into different areas. You've been one who started off with entertainment and have been able to continue all of that. We've got Tarun, who comes from pharmacy. We've got Meghna, who comes from marketing. And what do you see as you made Homecoming? You see parallels with the people whom you started off with, in school and college. They may have, how many of them continued with films or theater, or sometimes life takes you in an entirely different paths. And I imagine how much of that is reflected in Homecoming.
Well, you've almost given the philosophy of the film. So basically, people get into their father's business and people take up jobs.
Yeah.
And this guy, in fact, goes to America as a software engineer, leaving his backstage life behind. And
Right.
you know what's happening in curating a festival. And same scenario happens backstage during a theater show, like live. So it's like the people who are behind the scenes of a festival, and I'm like, it's also a homage to a backstage manager through that character. So that's what I was coming to. I could pay a homage to my friends, fellow talents, and people who believe in the idea of a collective. Like there are many talents who work individually, but what is it to work together as a band, as a theater group, as a arts collective, as a film team? In fact, cinema being has the like the highest number of collaborators in any art form, in fact, and that is the thrill of it. What you were mentioning, when I draw parallels with my contemporaries and peers, it's all about taking the leap of faith. I believe you might drift apart, but there's always a comeback, which is what Homecoming primarily addresses, that wherever you might drift, it's one life. You'll definitely be home if you come back. So that's what I would like to share through the film.
And what message would you give to other filmmakers? You have stayed that path in the entertainment and filmmaking. What message, if any, would you share with other folks traveling this road?
I think the best idea is to create and keep creating, but create when you want to create. It's just that. Don't become a byproduct or a product of the industry that you have to churn out one film per year, or you'll be forgotten if you don't make a film in 5 years or 10 years. Filmmaking is a very personal career. I would say it should be. There's obviously cinema is an art made for commerce. There's has to be commerce involved and such like. But then ultimately, it's a filmmaker's vision which makes the film. So remember why you started.
So to thyself be true. That's your message.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that.
So it's a very interesting question that you have posed, and as I reflect back, and I hear Shomoji describing his experience, I too grew up in an environment surrounded by various forms of entertainment. Like, there was no one particular thing that we focus. For example, my uncle would take me to the traditional group theaters, watch group theaters in Kolkata, watching Utpal Datta or other groups in the Academy of Fine Arts as young as I was 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to watch the Amitabh Bachchan movies with my dad. My dad was a die-hard Bachchan fan. So opening show, Dawn, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, I used to gorge on them. My mom, on the other hand, was more like Shoumitra Chatterjee, Uttam Kumar, and I used to go watch those movies. And I never could figure out what fascinated me about all those things, but I was absolutely gorging on them. And it's only later on I realized that what fascinated about all these mediums is they all told a story. A story that connected with you, a story that took you at a place where you did not think exists before you embarked on that journey with that story, and that resonated with me. And so I think it's and I started acting on stage, continued from a very early on. Through my college, I was very active I was at Jadavpur University, and we had a very active drama club. We used to have people like Shumon Mukhopadhyay and Soumitra Basu writing plays for us, directing, and we used to travel all over India, doing performances, winning awards. So I was all set on that path. But of course, like any other situations, the economic reality hit, and it was not a fruitful career that for me to be able to pursue given the economic situation at home. So I set that aside, pursued my other love, which was economics, and I pursued that. I put completely stop to that and did my master's, came over here in the US, did my PhD in economics, started working, and kind of it was almost a certain amount of heartbroken aspect of it. I did not want to act on stage. I didn't want to do anything. But after a while, that love came back, and that the love of storytelling came back, and I resumed my theater career here. And my association with films, I never thought I would be involved in films in any manner whatsoever. I liked watching them. I enjoyed them. But it also happened because the motivation was to tell a story. And it happened because of one of my friends, Shumon Ghosh. He's a very well-known film director, and as a very close friend of mine from Delhi School of Economics days. We used to stay in the same room. We used to, and we still are. And so he had a story, a very personal, poignant story that I thought was absolutely brilliant, but he wasn't finding a producer, and so he was stuck, and he said, I really want to tell this, but there's, and so I checked my bank account. It so happened I was then in private consulting, and I had a sizable amount of bonus I received that year. I said, Shumon, I have this money. Can you manage this within that? And I said, yeah, let's do it. So I became a producer. And that's how my first involvement with film happened, and it kind of progressed from there on. That film turned out to be I don't know. We made the film thinking it's going to be me and you sitting in this living room watching the movie. No one else will care about this movie, but it happened. It got picked up by Busan and then Toronto and other places. Yeah. It was called Shamul Uncle Turns Off the Lights, and it became very well. Anyways, so long story short, that's how the association with films, and with Aditya's film, it was the first time. And I have, as I said, various roles of producer, being the continuity person, being running around doing the cues and all that stuff. So I've been writing screenplays. But for Aditya's this film, he placed me in front of the camera as an actor, and that changed the whole mindset a lot, because I went there for our first rehearsals, having a lot of the crafts that I've developed through my theater acting career in my mind. I was ready with all the crafts because I know the character. I'm going to do all this craft. And like 5-6 minutes into the rehearsal where we are working, I realized, you know what? I have to throw that all out the door. What the only thing that's going to work over here is pure honesty. Aditya is a director like that. I don't want to see craft. Don't want to see you act. I want you to be honest in front of the camera. And it is not a very easy thing to do, because I have been trained to put on a mask when I'm on stage. Now to be able to do that, being brutally honest and throw away the mask and make yourself vulnerable, make yourself exposed in front of the camera, was a very hard thing to do. But once, I don't think I was able to do it fully, but whatever little I could do in this film was very liberating. Not being able to think about all those, how you're going to time your lines, how you're going to capture on capture on I just really, for most of the shoot, I just showed up. He'll give me and he always developed things very organically. We'll show up in a location, see lights are being set up and the set, and we will just take our moment, get ourselves familiarized with the space, and then organically we'll work on what the conversation would evolve in a situation like that. And so it was a very organic process of filmmaking, which allowed me as a almost first time film actor, to be able to shed all those inhibitions, shed all those crafts, and be immersed in the story itself, and be true to the moment, be true to the character. So that was a big, big learning experience that I had with this particular film, and for which I'm eternally thankful to Aditya for the opportunity to do that.
So it sounds to me, there's parallels or almost a continuation of what Shomijit laid out, that to thyself be true. It's got to be honesty.
Absolutely.
As an actor, as a script writer, as a director, making yourself well enough to be that. Would that also be a message to other filmmakers?
Absolutely. The one thing I would just add, it's also kind of the same theme, is that the one thing I've always, I like theaters, films, which, because at the end of the day, this is an entertainment, right? You are there to be entertained. Yeah. So one should not lose mind of that purpose too. You are there to entertain your audience, but through that entertainment process, that it will make the audience think. It will make them go back at their dinner table and have a conversation about what they just saw. But at the same time, it cannot be too preachy. It is not a seminar. Yeah. It is not a research paper. So to be able to strike that balance and being honest to the story is what at least I have tried to learn. I have learned and I've tried to imbibe throughout. And that's the only thing I can say with my limited experience.
Well, thank you. That is such a great way of putting that out in them. And I'm going to take that of not preaching, but giving that message, which was what jumped out to me in Conception. It wasn't judgmental, Tarun. It was all about sharing that experience and letting people relate to them. Tell us about what drives you.
So traditionally, I've always been a comedy writer. My previous films have always been comedies, and but I never wanted to just be one genre, right? But this story was based off of my experiences, and it was sitting around in my head for quite a while. But I would write comedies, and because I always thought comedies is the way into this industry, right? It's palatable, it's commercial, funny is funny. It's never going to go out of style. Right. But the story eventually just sat around in my head. And when I figured out the first, second, and third act, I went, and this was also written and made during COVID. I had the time to go, oh, let me sit down and crank this out. And when I did, the drama was really good. I mean, this is my first drama piece that I've ever written, ever filmed. And, just very recently, this film has been picked up by domestic distributors and internationally as well now. So by the end of the year, you're going to see this on platforms. And so it's just really interesting how this journey has been, because I'm a dialogue writer, right? So I like the quippiness of the comedy and the lines and the punchlines. And this is nothing like that at all, right? This is a serious drama piece where there's a lot of silence, and the silence says more than the words do. And I was sort of raised on a staple of a healthy amount of Bollywood and Hollywood. So, you grow up on Tarantino and that dialogue writing, and then Aaron Sorkin's writing, which is just perfection in terms of what a writer is supposed to do. And then also I was, in my late teens when I really started realizing this. So Kevin Smith's whimsicalness of what he writes, that dialogue writing is all embedded in me. And then at the same time, you come into, and I watched everything in Bollywood too. I just always loved movies. I just never thought I could ever do this kind of thing. So, I would watch everything. I would watch Madhur Bhandarkar's movies. I loved Ram Gopal's gangster movies of like the 90s, 2000s. I mean, that was just amazing. And then, of course, then you had obviously the refined big directors, Sanjay Leela and all them, and they're still, working and doing fantastic work. And so you see the gamut of everything. And being in America, I started to sort of mishmash everything. I go, what if you use the writing of Tarantino, but yet you mix it with the cinematography of Ram Gopal Verma? Wouldn't that be fascinating to kind of try and do something interesting with that? And so that's kind of where I started out being able to do it. And so, Conception was originally planned to be a short. But a short is not supposed to turn out to be 45 minutes. So when we finished the film, the short, it was 45 minutes. And I remember I was submitting it to film festivals, and they didn't need to, but some of the directors would actually reach out to me by email and say, Tarun, you have a great film. I just can't put this in my lineup. And he goes, that's 45 minutes. He's like, I can put anywhere from 6 to 10 different shorts in that block, and I can showcase those filmmakers instead of yours. And I go, well, then what am I supposed to do with this? And they go, you're looking at it wrong. One director told me, he goes, you're looking at it wrong. He goes, this isn't a short, this is half a feature. And so, and so that immediately sort of turned on a light bulb to me. And within a few weeks of me sort of pitching it around to investors, investment groups, I got the funding for it, because this was such an interesting scenario where this is not I was not doing a proof of concept. This is not a trailer. This is, hey man, I have half the movie that I made with my own money. I need the other half to finish this. And you see what the quality here is. I'm only going to be able to do better now with more money. And so it was a very easy sell. And in the middle of the pandemic, we quickly, while I was finishing a post on the short, I had already written out the feature just in case. I didn't know if I'd ever get the money to make it, but I was like, let me just finish it regardless. Within a couple of months of finishing the short, I had the money. Within 2-3 months, went right back into production. And we finished out the entire movie. Turned out to be 1 hour and 45 minutes. So we went from a 45-minute short to 1 hour and 45. I was able to, because I relatively shot it in a very short amount of time, we were able to keep all the actors looking the same. And so we used all of the original footage from the short. I didn't reshoot anything. Usually whenever you do these kinds of sort of mock-up works, you reshoot everything. I didn't do that. Again, the one thing I learned about this process is money and films. I've learned very, very well with this film, I almost guarantee you I probably had less money than most filmmakers' movies here. But I was able to learn how to really squeeze what a penny and a dollar can do in film. And I was able to reuse all of my old footage that we did. And I had to have the actors sort of adjust their weight again to match what we had just done, about 6, 7, 8 months ago. One of the actresses, she does pageants and things. So she was getting ready for a pageant and she had lost all this weight. And I go, no. Madam, everything, anything you can eat. I need your weight back in your face and we need to match you again. And the guy, my main lead, he was like, oh, we're doing the feature. This is fantastic. He started lifting weights and I'm going, why? You need to match yourself, not look like Thor, well, what is this? And so, matching them was a kind of a funny thing to do, but we were able to do it and no one can, and the footage looks so seamless. You could probably never tell what was ever shot a year apart from each other. And so that's one thing that if I were to tell other filmmakers is understand the financial part of film. Really, that has been the most important thing that I've learned in this film is how to really stretch the dollar, how to make your dollar go the farthest in film. And that's been really the key to success of why this film is going to do very well or has done very well so far is because of what we've done there. And again, we talked about Arindam talked about how there was this sort of an organicness to the way that they did filmmaking. Well, I didn't have the most skillful actors, so we actually did it the other way around. And it was my first time doing a drama, so you could only imagine how worried the actors are who have never done a drama before. Neither one of them had done drama before. I had never done drama before. So we over-rehearsed this thing down to the T. Every single line, if there was a line that the actors weren't pulling off or one actor wasn't pulling off, we stripped it, we threw it out, and I went, what will you say that will work, that'll fit what we are doing here? And I sort of custom tailored all of my writing, because my background, again, is writing. That's where I feel the most comfortable. And I went, how can we adjust everything to where you are set up for success as an actor? Because that's ultimately my goal as a director, is to set you up for success. That I think it was, I was listening to a podcast with George Clooney, and he said the best directing you can do is casting the right people. That's it. That's really the best. He's like, he's like, there's no art to directing, really. He's like, there's no secret to it. It's just make sure you cast very well and they make you look better than, you are as a director. And I was like, well, George Clooney says it. I'll take George Clooney on his word. I mean, the man is a very accomplished guy. So with these actors, I didn't have them produce anything that was out of their wheelhouse of what they could do. Of course, I stretched them a bit, but I didn't completely go, I need you to come completely out of your comfort zone out of this. I'll stretch you a bit. I'll challenge you, but I want to set you up for success. So even some of the jokes, if the jokes were of my writing, if that wasn't their sensibilities, I change the jokes then. Go, okay, you're not pulling off the jokes the way that they were intended. Let's write something that you are comfortable with, that is in your wheelhouse of comedy, that will fit this world of film that we are making. And so, those are my little 2 cents on it. So,
well, I'll tell you that casting was beautifully done. Both these central characters fit right in. Even her boss came in very natural. So good job there.
Thank you.
Seeing all your movies doing really well. Siddhant, I see you're back in your accommodation. Siddhant, tell us about what drives you real quick and your message to other filmmakers.
Yeah, so basically my journey, I used to be a lawyer. I used to be a corporate lawyer. I quit my job and I went to film school. So I'm technically still studying. As a lawyer, I was never really satisfied. And the kind of work I was doing wasn't really driving me too much. And I was trying to figure out a way to really express myself and to be able to be a kind of a meaningful asset to society. And I ended up, I wanted to learn filmmaking first before delving into or showing people what I want to express. So I studied in FAMU and Berlin Film School, and currently I'm also, thereafter, I was studying cinematography. I switched to documentary filmmaking. So I'm studying in Doc Nomads right now, which is a course which takes place in 3 cities across Europe. It's Lisbon, Budapest, and Brussels. Currently, I'm on my summer break. And well, the process has been extremely long and extremely difficult because before I ended up going into this course, which I'm doing right now, during my previous studies, I started this independent project, which is INA, which is Mirror, which I did it on my own, partially with my own money, and then through some funding that I received from Asian Cinema Fund. And eventually I got a couple of co-producers from Lithuania and South Korea who helped me conclude the film. And for me, it was an incredible journey because, I was kind of feeling a little bit limited in terms of being able to express myself as a cinematographer, especially in fiction where everything is in a controlled environment. I wanted to be part of reality and be able to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. And yes, so it was a journey in self-exploration and filmmaking and understanding how the markets work eventually. And through this extremely long process of 5.5 years of documentary filmmaking, which I did not even know it's going to last that long. It was a bit of an experiment from my side, and a huge learning process. Eventually now the film's doing pretty well. It's been screened across Europe in prestigious festivals like Krakow, Munich, Vilnius, and it was also showed in Mami, Mumbai Film Festival, and Budapest Film Festival. So I think the process is still going on, and I'm still exploring myself as a documentarist and what it means to tell documentary cinema, how to bring to light people's stories, which is still going to catch people's attention. And as you know, like in India especially, documentary cinema takes a back seat over Bollywood, Netflix, Amazon, or of these kinds of cinematic language which is used there. So I'm still trying to figure out how documentaries fit into this world. And yeah, I'm
You
still
made
on
a
this
really
journey.
good start. You know, you talked about not having the same control as you have in fiction, but I think you did an outstanding job. You brought out the vulnerability, the honesty of these young ladies and how they're proceeding forward. So that is remarkable. And you know, the legal profession's loss is certainly your audience's gain. You know, we're looking forward to more things that you do out here as I've done. I would like to close by thanking all of you for your participation. You've done an outstanding job with your movies. The audience is going to love them. And last but definitely not least, when we talked about the organizers, kudos to the efforts of Manoj and Geeta Singh for what they've done for this community and for this art form in general. I've had the privilege of working with them for 7 years, and they've been doing this a lot longer. Things get better and better. So to all of you, organizers, our sponsors, and the audience, thank you very much. We hope you're enjoying DC Summerfest 2022. With that,
thank you so much for your moderation. It was
Thank
very
you.
enjoyable. And I just want to echo your thoughts in thanking DCSAFF and Manoj for putting this up every year and then giving us a taste of good independent movies from the South Asian continent. I really, really am appreciative of their efforts.